Chapter 3, Treading Over Bipolarism. I remember waking up plenty of nights hearing things being thrown around the house, glass breaking, books hitting the wall, accompanied by some screaming and yelling, as sometimes my dad's anger would get the best of him. Now, these raging episodes were emotionally draining, and sometimes I would witness an episode and would think, this is not even him. Anger, unforgiveness, and fear are a terrible and dangerous mix. From time to time, he would disappear for days and weeks at a time. And at first it bothered me a lot, but I got to the point where I learned to deal with it. After it became a pattern, I just accepted the fact that this would be a part of my life. But still, acting like I didn't care was a facade. I just didn't know what was worse, not having a father in the home at all, or having one that was in and out. So I dealt with things internally while trying to figure out where to seek help. I didn't turn to drugs or alcohol, but I did make some bad choices in friends. And at one point, I was even considered gang affiliated because of the people I was hanging around. Now, my mom, starting to see the signs, wasn't having it. And after finding some letters with gang-related content, she took every stitch of blue clothes that I owned and put them in a trash bag. The youth group at my church caught wind of what was going on and discovered that I and some other youth were heading down a dangerous road, and they prompted them to call a meeting. They wanted to intervene right away before we went too deep. So we took this field trip to one of the prisons to see how they live every day. And for the most part, that was enough to make us shy away from our wrongdoings. We didn't want to live that prison life. Our pastor told us that the only gang that we should be claiming was the blood of Jesus, and he explained the dangers of that street life that we thought we wanted to live. It only leads to jail or the grave. And as my dad would sometimes say, there's a body bag size for everybody. But see, a mother knows her child, and my mom knew that lifestyle wasn't me at all. I wasn't a street kid. Honestly, I was way too nice. A girl once told me that I was the nicest thug ever, and the truth is, I was far from a thug, just a church boy with a lot of anger inside. One who did feel alone and felt like he had no one to run to or no one to talk to. But that's the danger of judging a book by its cover. Like, you wouldn't think I felt that way by looking at me. You wouldn't know that I felt alone in a room full of people, like I had no one to relate to, especially being the likable person that I was. But those feelings were real, and some of those feelings followed me into my adult years. As a young boy, I went through this stage where I would let so much anger build up that my release came through fighting. As nice as I was, I welcomed people to start fights so I can finish them. They always say, don't pick on the quiet kids because you never know what they got going on the inside, and I happen to have a lot going on. One of the fights that I remember the most was in middle school. A student was making fun of my name, and by this time that was nothing new. You know, it was hard going through school with a name like Earl Dix. Let's not leave out the old school Southern Junior. As years passed, I became more confident and comfortable with my name, and also used to people's immaturity. Now, thinking back to that day, that kid making fun of my name wasn't the real issue. The problem was my anger and not knowing how to express it. And as I stated before, I felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to about how I was feeling because I didn't want to embarrass my family by telling people what was going on at home. That's something that you don't do when your parents are leaders in the church. See, some of y'all grew up in the same culture that I grew up in, and the rule is what happens in this house stays in this house. So I wasn't running to the front office or running to a counselor to tell them how I feel. No, sir. I had already decided on that day, but he was going to catch his fate. Now, I grew up in Willow Springs, so if you don't know what that means, that's 4-9 talk for we were going to fight. So here we are. It's the last bell of the day, and everybody's looking to see what's going to happen. Remember, it's middle school, so people live to see fights, and most of those people wouldn't dare fight themselves, but they found pleasure in watching other people go at it. And my walking path wasn't far from where I lived, so I was always mindful that my parents could see me doing something I shouldn't be doing. But on this day, I didn't care. I approached a young man who had apparently forgotten what I told him earlier. As we were walking home, I walked behind him, challenging him to keep that same energy he had earlier. And without a doubt, I had bad intentions, but he seemed to want no part of it at the time. But here's the thing, him walking away just seemed to make me even more angry. So before I knew it, I turned him around so he can see me, and I hit him. And I hit him with all the anger that I had inside of me. I was told that it sounded like I hit him with a bottle or something, but it wasn't a bottle. It was just one angry fist. I was rushed with these mixed emotions as he fell to the floor, and I stood over him, telling him to get up. I gained some clout from my peers, and the young man that I hit could barely stand up, but in a way, I felt terrible. Like, I knew better. I knew not to hit someone in the head that hard. And when I got home, I thought to myself, what if he had died? Like, that's a scary thought. But how many times has that happened? That 30 seconds of anger, that 20 seconds of anger leads to someone doing something that's going to change their life forever. Thank God for grace. Needless to say, I was happy to see him when we got to school the next day. Man, I even apologized. He surprisingly accepted my apology and apologized to me as well. That situation was over, but the fighting didn't stop. I would continue to make stupid decisions. I was fighting over things that didn't even matter. But ironically, the whole time, God was fighting for me. Look, if you're battling depression, you're having suicidal thoughts, it's okay to reach out for help. Talk about it with a friend. I know sometimes as believers, we treat depression like it's some unforgivable sin or this like unhealable sickness, but that's far from the truth. I would advise you to seek counsel. Seek counsel with someone that's qualified to help you with the day-to-day steps to beat depression and suicidal thoughts. We can tread over depression, anxiety, and suicide. Look, prayer versus word plus godly counsel equals victory. Tread with me.